Welcome to Fascist Economics 101.
Hi there. This is a special mini episode meant for listeners who are interested in the economic side of fascism, but who are unfamiliar with how things work in large corporations. In the next full-length episode, I'll talk about how the White House got 10% of Intel's shares of stock as well as other concessions. So for this mini episode, I'll be explaining the basics of how owning shares of stock gives investors power over a company. This will help us understand how the White House owning stock in Intel is actually giving Donald Trump more political power. If you're already familiar with stock ownership, boards of directors, and activist investors, then please feel free to skip this special mini episode. Otherwise, let's get started. So, what are shares of stock? Shares of stock represent ownership of a company. Businesses of any size can issue shares of stock, which means that they can give or sell shares of stock to people or institutions. Although the companies are run by their chief executive officer, the CEO's boss is the shareholders. These investors have the authority to fire the CEO and other top executives. As a result, the only way for corporate executives to keep their jobs is to run the company in a way that meets the goals that the shareholders set for them. The fact that shareholders have this degree of authority over companies is why we say that shares of stock represent ownership. The main way that shareholders exercise their authority over companies is by voting for people to be on a company's board of directors. Boards of directors represent the interests of shareholders and other stakeholders to the company's executives, and the shareholders' authority to hire and fire the CEO and other top executives is usually given to the board of directors. Because of their delegated authority, you can think of a board of directors sort of like an electoral college for corporate governance. You vote for the people in the electoral college, and then the electoral college votes for the next president. It's the same principle. So, given that, why are shares of stock valuable? Well, shares of stock are valuable because the company has the power to distribute money, called a dividend, to its shareholders on the basis of their shares. That is, the percentage of shares you own dictates your percentage of the dividend, the money. For example, if a company's shareholders vote to distribute $10,000 of the company's money, and one person owns 10% of the shares, that person will receive a dividend equal to 10% of that overall $10,000. 10% of 10,000 is 1,000, so that's what the 10% shareholder receives, $1,000. Keep in mind, the value of a stock isn't just about the next expected dividend. If a company is growing and doing well, it will have the power to issue larger dividends in the future. So the price of a stock depends on what investors expect for the company's future. Now, all this is about profits and normal investing. Let's talk about how activist investors sometimes use their investments to advance a cause or ideology. This is important because, as I'll describe in the next episode, the White House is going to function as an activist investor. So, an activist investor is anyone who invests in a company with the intent of forcing change. This opens some interesting possibilities. You see, most investors invest because they want to profit from their investment, and profitability is all they care about, but that's not necessarily true for activist investors. These investors can use their power to make a company advance an ideological goal, from reducing pollution to advancing perceived Christian values to taking a stand against authoritarian governments. using companies to advance societal goals can be a useful strategy because companies are important. In terms of good societal goals, basically every bad behavior you see from corporate America is in the pursuit of profit, because CEOs know that profitability will keep their shareholders happy. And to a CEO, having happy shareholders means job security. But if a CEO has to think about activist shareholders who are more focused on morals than profits, then allowing bad behavior is no longer as solid a strategy for CEOs to maintain their position. But on the other side of that coin, activist shareholders can advance evil causes as well. For good or ill, anyone with enough money can shape corporate behavior. Even if activist investors only buy a small percentage of a company's shares, corporate executives must take their preferences into account. Activist investors can be a thorn in a CEO's side, going to investor meetings and forcing the CEO to answer awkward questions in front of the other investors about the company's values and practices. And whenever the shareholders get together and vote, even a slim margin can be the difference between whether the CEO gets to keep his or her job. And companies may not shut activist investors out, because even small investors have legal rights too. So keep this power and influence in mind for the next episode, where we'll go over what the Trump administration has managed to extract from American companies. All right, thank you so much. Please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.